Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast. This is episode 225 of the show. And our guest this week is no stranger. He is making their third visit to the show. I'm talking about the wild and wacky guy, Mr. Frank. Yes, Frank Edler is back. This week we're going to be discussing some of the books that he's been working on ever since his last time on the show, as well as some of his new ones that are getting ready to come up. One of the interesting things about that is how the book that he talked about last time, Catcoin, we're talking about how that all led into one of his upcoming books, Haunted Hamburger House, which is going to be sold as an NFT. And he goes into depth about that. We're also discussing whether or not he's ever considered using a pseudonym, writing quirks, and turning fears into writing inspiration. We also take a few moments to discuss a friend of the show that I don't think I got to mention here a while back. Past episode, we had our friend of the show, Jay Wilburn. About a year ago, he was on the show, and we've talked about him before, but he passed away, sadly, about a month ago now. And Frank was one of his friends, and we discussed a little bit of that, going into a little memorandum about Jay Wilburn, who was just one of the sweetest guys you could ever ask for. But all that and so much more, it's going to be coming up here in just a few more minutes. So if you don't want to hear any of my own news or anything, you can skip ahead about 4 or 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start up a little bit of the personal notes and news, starting with a heartfelt thank you to all of our veterans out here across America and across the world, really. But last week was Veterans Day here in America, and the one that has the very special spot in my heart, of course, is my wife. She is my hero, my idol, and that one veteran who I just absolutely adore. Not to take anything away from anyone else, but of course, obviously, she has that very special spot. So, but anyway. As a veteran myself, I salute all of you veterans out there if you catch this show, and thank you so much for your service. So as you heard last time on episode 224 with G.A. Edwards, we talked about Hawthorne Creek, which is now available. It's an anthology with 14 short stories of mysteries, all taking place in the little town of Hawthorne Creek, including yours truly. Yes, my little story, The Tourist Trap, is also one of those stories in there. And this past weekend, I had a really great get-together with all of the authors. Actually, we all got to get together, 13 of us in person and one virtually. But we all got to get together and celebrate the premiere of the book at the local library. And it was a great turnout and a lot of fun. Even had a cake with the cover of the book on there. And that was a lot of fun. As promised last time, I also released the cover reveal of Bandit 2 out on social media. So that was put out there, and it's gotten a really great reception. A lot of people really excited about the upcoming book, Bandit 2, and I'm having such a blast. I am into the final stages of another round of edits right now. And the plan is still, I don't have a set date, but the plan is still for later in December. I would love it if I can get it out for Christmas. So that's what I'm shooting for. And of course, all of you out there listening, you're going to find out about that first by following the show. So make sure you are following the show on social media. You can just easily find the show, Sample Chapter Podcast, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We do share every new episode each week, and we do a lot of throwbacks to past episodes. You can also subscribe to the show on your favorite platform. And we're up to 225 as of this week, and that's an awful lot of authors on there with fantastic stories that you can go back and check out. If you would like to reach out to the show, you can do so via email at samplechapterpodcast@gmail.com and drop me a line. I'd be happy to hear from you. And I have a whole lot of emails right now from people every week. But right now, as I mentioned last time, and in case this is the first time you're hearing this, I am going to be slowing down a little bit for the end of this year, making some plans for how next year will proceed, but I will be back again. We do have another episode for sure coming up next week, and then probably another one or two in December, but that's going to be about it for the year. I'm going to slow it down, enjoy the holidays, and then we'll be back in January. With all that in mind, I think, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and just call it there. We got a long episode. Had a nice long chat with Frank and a lot of laughs and really interesting stuff as he talks about everything that went into it. So without further ado, let's hop on over to the interview with Frank Edler. Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Hey, I am back this week, and I'm so thrilled to have a return guest with the show. Somebody that goes way back to the show, to its early days. Back in 2018, we had this guest here talking about his book, Scatterbrain. After that, he joined us in March of 2020, right before COVID hit, with his release of Catcoin. And today, we are talking about quite the book. I'm going to wait and let him announce the title because I'm going to mess it up, I know. But I am talking about the one and only Mr. Frank Edler joining me on the show. Mr. Frank, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Jason. It has been far too long, but I'm glad to make my triumphant return to the Sample Chapter podcast.
As unique as always, as always, man. Oh my gosh, yes, it has definitely been way too long. It's like Twitter is just not enough to catch up, and I'm so glad to be able to get you on here and just kind of chat for a little bit and see what's going on and let everybody know what you're up to.
Sounds great. I can't wait to talk about it all. There's been quite a bit since then.
There has been. So, well, so yeah, going back, I mean, I was looking at the books we've talked about before, starting with Scatterbrain 2018, which I did read, loved it. Oh my gosh, that cracked me up with the brain and his sneakers. And he was working at the blood bank, right? Ran by vampires.
Well, he went there. I forgot for what reason he went there, but he did wind up in a blood bank for vampires.
Yeah, that's so funny. That popped in my head the other day. And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. I should write that. And then went, wait a minute. I've heard that somewhere before. And then making my notes for the show, that was like, oh, that's where it was. It was Frank.
Where else would a vampire work?
It's so brilliant. So brilliant. Going forward, we talked about Catcoin before, which is still in my TBR because after that, I picked up Death in Toledo, which I absolutely adored, man. Let me see if I can remember the line that really spoke to me. It was the power of Bon Jovi behests you or something.
Yeah, compels you or something.
Compels you, yes. Oh my gosh, that just I was in a snowplow pushing snow and listening to that audiobook. And I lost it, man. That cracked me up. I had to stop what I was doing for a minute. That was so funny.
Yeah, and a lot of the credit for that goes to, since you're talking about the audiobook, that goes to the narrator, Ron Gabaldon, who did the other death book as well. And as funny as that book is, his performance of it, even when I was listening to him, put the recordings in, he had me laughing at my own stuff because his delivery on stuff is fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better narrator on that because he translated that work well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, since then, you've had a few other books. One of those, Uncomfortable Shorts. What is this about?
Uncomfortable Shorts it's my second short story collection. My first one was titled Scared Silly. It was like my first work. So over the years since then, I've had a bunch of, I'm always writing short stories here and there. So I had enough to start another collection. So I put together some stuff, and it is like probably like my weirdest stuff. Like lately when I write short stories, I really kind of go into experimental mode, like not my usual stuff, and really try weird stuff out. So I had a lot of this just really absurd and over the top and kind of experimental styles that I thought were neat and would work together as a collection for the feel of things. And then it's like, what do you call this stuff? Uncomfortable shorts. And there we go. There we have it.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. I've never before had dipped my toes into short stories until this past fall. I got an invite and I wasn't going to do it. And then last minute I thought, you know what? Why not? Let me just see what I can do. And I kind of looked over, they gave me the itinerary of what all is involved, what the stories need to be around. And something stood out to me, and I was like, okay, let me see what I can do with this. And it was outside my wheelhouse, but yet it was so much fun. I had so much fun. It had to be under 5,000 words. And I loved it. It was great. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to look at some more short stories. That was a lot of fun. And so I can totally see, where you get that experimentation from, and doing something out of the norm.
Yeah, that's like sort of becoming like my training ground or my practice ground, and I've seen now doing that with short stories over time, because as I was first becoming a published writer, like that's where I started cutting my teeth writing short stories for anthologies or things of that nature. And then when it was time to step up to the novellas and the novels, I left that stuff behind and I got comfortable with the style. It's like I got all this stuff down, but then it became like a thing like, oh, I still want to write stories. There's short stories because there's something, it's a very different animal, for people that don't write. The short story may seem easy, but it's actually, sometimes it's harder to keep concise and shorter and tell a story in that compact of time. So that's where I just started, just getting loosey goosey with style and narrative. And I'm like, oh, this has been fun. And I've started now seeing that those styles bleed a little bit now into my newer, longer form work. So yeah, I'm just enjoying, I do enjoy being playful, put it that way, in short story form. Yeah.
And prior to writing my short story, I had already been, I think, learning to be even more critical about my sentence structure and, getting to the point a little faster. I've never been like very flowery when it comes to my writing anyway, but I've been figuring out like, okay, words that need to be cut and stuff. And so my experience with the short story just kind of emphasized that even more. It's like, yeah, you don't have the time like you do in a novel where you can expand on something and grow with it and see where this goes. You've got a limited amount of time to tell this story, and like every word counts.
Yeah. It's it's a fun way to do it. And I don't know, I think the satisfaction of did that work like pays off better, because like I think when you write a short story, when you get to the end of it, like whether it's good or not. It's not like when you write a long book, you just kind of feel terrible about the whole thing, and you have to take some time and rework it and everything. And I think with a short story, like, because it's just so short and punchy, you get to the end and you're like, yeah, that worked, or it was like, that'll never see the light of day. But the time invested too, and is a little bit shorter, so you can afford to be experimental and sort of maybe not care that it's not gonna ever see the light of day or find some eyes, but at least you're still like learning for yourself and playing around, and that's good enough.
Exactly. So I want to hear about Exploding Bears.
Exploding Bears. So last year, I was invited to our friend Armand Rosamilia's house. He wanted to do a big writing, well, I shouldn't say big, but he wanted to do a writing retreat, get a lot of his author friends, as many as he could cram into his house for an extended weekend, and just everybody huddle up and write all day long. And then at night, we'd have dinner and just kind of powwow and everything. And of course, I definitely wanted to join him, and I needed like a project to work on. And it had been the first time that I would, in a long time, that I had essentially 4 days to write just 8 hours plus a day and just bang something out. It's almost like a NaNoWriMo, like short weekend. and I needed something to do that. And at the same time, there was this, and we'll talk a little bit more about this because some of my other work is fed into this, but there's this platform now, a sort of alternative, shall we say, to buying books from Amazon, and it's called godless.com. It's run by a gentleman named Drew Stepik, who he just wanted alternatives, alternative ways to get people, specifically like the extreme horror, but like any kind of horror or weird stuff or avant-garde stuff that maybe Amazon might tend to take down because there's issues with content or any number of things. You know, it was kind of like fighting the man on that point. And also he wanted to be able to offer like really short stories. He was frustrated with like the 99-cent bottom price point for Amazon. He wanted to sell stories for like 25 cents or 50 cents. So he launched his own platform called Godless. And is doing just that. He's going to give books that, you know, somebody has issues with content because something in the algorithm kicks the book out and your book's off of Amazon, or the cover is a little too racy, or it's just these little short stories that, you know, don't fit anywhere, but you kind of want to share them with the world, and you can get, you know, a couple pennies for it. The great thing is for the authors, he gives you 90% of the royalties on everything you sell.
Oh, wow.
Which is it's really great. And like the math of it all, like where you would sell something for 99 cents on Amazon, you only wind up getting like 30 cents, 35 cents of the royalty on that. You can go on Godless and sell something for like 60 or 70 cents and still wind up with 56. You get more money for like cheaper stuff. So it's just been a really cool platform. But it was founded, or you know, the let's say the demographic there tends to be into really like extreme, kind of over the top, gory, crazy, raunchy, horror, dark fiction, bizarro type of stuff. So I wanted to write something that crazy. And so my idea, and this is also, you know, coming out of the 2020 pandemic, we were all locked down, we were all watching Netflix, and we all saw Tiger King, right?
Right.
Which is a nutty story in and of itself. I sat there going, you can't make this. Even I couldn't make something this nutty up. Every episode is like even crazier than you think it was crazy already. So that was my challenge to myself when I went down to Armand's house. Is I'm going to go down there. I'm going to write something way over the top for this godless crowd and this new platform that seems pretty cool. And I want to tell a story that is crazier than the Tiger King story. And so I came up with this idea of a guy who's running his own sort of theme park, his own little like animal park, like Joe Exotic, except he has people in and he blows up bears for entertainment. And
oh my gosh.
So Exploding Bears is legitimately the story of a guy who runs a park where he blows up bears for the entertainment of others. And it is just so I didn't know how this was going to be received, because there are people very sensitive about animal cruelty, and my intention was not to ruffle their feathers, but to be so ridiculous about it that you had no choice to laugh, because it's just preposterous, right? And you are like, not really my cup of tea, but he goes, I can't really get mad because it was just insane what you did there. So I've sort of succeeded in circumnavigating the anger of the animal rights people so far, anyway, by just telling it. And it doesn't even, I can't even do justice to the insanity that's in the book without getting too spoilery, but I blow up every kind of bear I could think of, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh my gosh. I remember hearing little bits and pieces, no pun intended, about the book over the past year or so. And I remember Armand talking about his MondoCon and you being there and getting that started. And oh my gosh, it's been fun to follow that story and hearing little bits and of it along the way. But oh my gosh, yeah, I think it's the first time that I've really heard more about what's going on,
what's actually in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, often, because it was, I mean, just writing it, just the ability to sit there for 8 hours and just be that into the story and for hours, and just everything was just rolling, like, and it was just as a fun story. I think that helped get me into this zone. Like you really got into a zone there after a couple hours. And I did talk about some experimental stuff. Oh my God. There's one part, I'll just try not to be too spoiled. There's one part where there's some characters in the book basically find some magic mushrooms and start tripping. And the whole chapter is like they're tripping out so bad that like space bar, like space between words doesn't exist anymore. And there's like pages of legit prose, but without spaces. It's sort of like the challenge to the reader if you really want to pick through that and read it all. But it was just like I just felt so in the zone, and I was sitting there like giggling, writing this stuff and trying, like I almost felt high trying not to hit the space bar, because if you type like typing, it's like actually hard not to hit the space bar and be conscious of that. And it was fun. All I can say, it was fun. And that was definitely one example where like getting experimental bled into my longer works.
Oh my gosh. That, and yeah, it sounds like you hit the zone there. Do you know how many words a day were you writing? Do you know?
Oh, all told, over the 3.5, 4 days, whatever we were there. Well, I guess it was 3 days of actual writing. I got there like Thursday afternoon. I left on Monday morning. So we had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday writing. I wrote close to 17,000 words. I was doing over 5,000 words a day. And I went in thinking like 3,000 words, because I don't usually have those long sprints. I'm writing for half hour to an hour at best per day. I'm, spitting out maybe 500, 1,000 words in a sitting. So I'm like, I don't know. I can't, imagine. But I hit 3,000 the first day. I'm like, that was too easy. And, end up at like 5,200, 5,500 on the first day. I'm like, I'm going to have to, up my expectations here, because when I do have the time and ability to sit and just write, I'm impressed myself. I kind of spit out way more than I thought I was capable of. I wish I could have that much time for myself to write. I mean, I think about, I'm like, if I could write full time, the amount of stuff I could spit out with that kind of output would be insane. I'd have Armand Rosamilia numbers.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's the dream. Like right now, I'm just hoping to, I want to reach the point where I can work at least my current short-term goal is, to write enough to make enough money that I can work at least one less day a week. And then maybe the next year cut off another day and put that towards writing, and just kind of keep going from there until I can retire myself and stay home. And then same thing with my wife, and go from there.
Yeah, I would love to. I think my only out at this point, I mean, stranger things have happened, but I think I got to hit that $2 billion lottery in order to get myself under. Unfortunately, my full-time job pays really well, so matching that with writing would take quite a bit. But I mean, if it can ever get going to that point, and take a loss and just be home doing it, I wouldn't ever hesitate at the chance to do it, if it were available for that. But I really do just enjoy writing at the pace I do. I put out about 2 books a year, some short stories and stuff here and there. So I'm very comfortable with the amount of stuff I do get out. And
yeah, well, and that's a decent pace right now. 2 books a year is pretty good. I mean, that's, if I can get my next one out here in December, like I'm hoping to, then I'll just squeak into that if I include the short story. But
yeah, that's how I usually get it in. Just squeak it. Hey, it's the same number at the one in January, 1 December. It's the same year.
There you go. So speaking of experimental, you have another one right now, the haunted hamburger. Is that what it is?
Haunted Hamburger House. Yeah.
Hamburger House.
Yeah, that one's I always say it's a unique release. And this kind of story goes back a little bit to, it finds its origins in the book Catcoin, which I was last on talking about, which released right before the pandemic and all the lockdown. And it came out of the gates pretty good. But then when lockdown hit, it sort of tanked, and, it was what it was. And, a departure for me in style and genre, I kind of say it's more like an action adventure, a cyber thriller type of story. So it didn't get the attention previous books had. And I just kind of like, all right, it's locked down. Let's move forward, write more stuff. And, it was just my one thing. I'm not going to take it down or anything like that. I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
And cryptocurrency has been a interest, a passion, a hobby of mine. And that's why I wrote it. So fast forward to a year later, as we're coming out of lockdown and everything. And this is, well, really, it all happened earlier this year, 2022, out of the blue. One day, I check in my sales numbers here and there, and I happened to check in once, and I had an ebook sale in, I think it was the German market or something like that. I'm like, that is weird, right? I've had some British stuff and like that, but I've never had a German sale. That is weird. A couple days later, I have a gentleman send me a message on Twitter, I think it was, and he's "Are you the author of this Catcoin book?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." Who's asking me about? Nobody cares about Catcoin. And he goes, "Oh, well, your book came true, and there's a real Catcoin now, and we're all excited about this, and we're all talking about your book now." I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" So anyway, it turns out in 2021, this group of people or somebody created, like Bitcoin, Doge, all this. If you follow it at all, there's a million different coins nowadays, right? And Doge is one of them, and Bitcoin, Ethereum, all that stuff. Well, somebody created Catcoin in 2021, and it had I guess it was doing pretty good, all things considered. And we won't talk about crypto right now because it's in the toilet. But at one point, this Catcoin was created, put on the market, and it was doing really well. And there's this whole online global community. There's people from India, there's people from Germany, Romania, the US, Canada, everywhere, all over Asia, some South America. I mean, everywhere. And they're all on these like Discord servers talking about it. And it's a whole thing anyway. So they came to me, they're like, I had screen capture because it was nuts. They were like, "How did you know? How did you?" I'm like, "I didn't know. I just wanted to write a book about, Bitcoin." And just for sake of argument, I said, "It's cats, right?" And they were going berserk like I was the second coming of God. And they're like, "Did you make this?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not the creator of it," because supposedly the creator of Catcoin is some, mythical figure now. Nobody knows who he really is or some junk like that. I don't know what's going on with that.
Wow.
But they just like took me in and embraced me and all over this book. And I'm like, like, I just wrote a book. This is insane. To the tune of later now, I own Catcoin now as far as cryptocurrency, and I'm a part of this quote unquote community. They're begging me to write a Catcoin too and all that.
Oh my gosh.
Which I don't know I will or will not do, but it's just been crazy. But that sort of leads down into this. As I'm writing new stuff, it become my intention last year to start writing stories that I could sell to indie publishers, because I've been very self-published. I've been almost all self-published, sort of like anthologies and stuff, until now. And though I've been doing well, I feel like I've hit a wall gaining new readership. And I feel like the next move is to start working with some indie publishers, tap into their readership, and grow my own brand, further from there. So I started trying to write stuff that was a little more less crazy than what's, you're used to from me. So one of the things I wrote was Haunted Hamburger House. And as this is done, it's polished up, I'm ready to start shopping it. There's a publisher called D&T Publishing who started a line of NFT books. Now, I don't I'll just be like real simple about this because it's a whole thing. NFT is part of the cryptocurrency market. It's like a digital token, or it's really a digital contract.
Okay. Yeah.
If anybody's familiar with it, they kind of associate NFTs with like pictures or artwork. The Bored Apes is like a very popular one, but they always think of NFTs in like the form of which. And some people scoff at it. They're like, "How can I own a GIF? I can just right click on that and share it." Yes, you can share it left and right, but contractually, there's a legal contract that the person has ownership of that image. Just like when you're, you can download pictures and put them on your blog or whatever. It doesn't mean you own those pictures and you may own people royalties. Very similar with NFTs. Now, that being said, there are people now that are attaching to these NFTs digital books, like an ebook essentially is all it is. So you're going into these NFT like marketplaces like you would in Amazon. You have to use cryptocurrency to buy these NFTs. That's sort of one of the hurdles of getting people on board with this stuff. But the thing is, you go in, you use your cryptocurrency, you buy an NFT, and you now own this book, and you truly own. This is the part I hammer home. You're gonna own the rights to the photograph of the cover. In the case of Haunted Hamburger House, is a really neat like motion GIF, animated sort of GIF, and it was like a mini movie, just a 15-second mini movie that like is a scene out of the book. It's really awesome. But when you buy that, you then get access to the ebook, PDF, EPUB, whatever file you want, and you also get the audiobook, which has already been done and is part of purchasing this NFT. You get the audiobook files as well, so you get this whole ebook experience all wrapped into one, whether you want to read it, listen to it. You get a cool piece of artwork with it. And also, I think people sort of think of NFTs as a one-of-a-kind thing, which it can be, but doesn't necessarily have to be. And in the case of these NFT books, there's something on the order of, I don't know, 1,000 copies essentially available. I think that can be upped if it sells well. It's just the thing that gives it value.
Yeah.
So, and as opposed to, I don't know whether people realize or not, when you buy an ebook off of Amazon or Nook or Kobo, wherever you buy it, you're not truly purchasing ownership of the book. You're really just sort of buying the license to access the files off of Amazon servers, and Amazon or whoever it is off that platform can take that book down at any time. They can close up shop, and then all these books you've quote unquote purchased can be gone. And that's not the case with NFTs. When you buy an NFT book, you truly own it for the life of the world. It's actually yours. These NFTs have, like I said, a contract associated with them. It's a legally binding contract. And ownership is provable through the blockchain. Again, this is a lot of technical stuff, but that's the thing I try to hammer home is it's honest to goodness ownership of it. In the case of my publisher D&T, they're attaching an audiobook with it and the other stuff, the different kinds of files and stuff. So it's true ownership. I know I'm really on the ground floor of this stuff. There's a lot of hurdles getting people on board with crypto and everything, but I enjoy the space. I believe in the future of it. And so when they came and asked me, because they're like, you wrote that Catcoin book, like you're into that stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah. I want your Haunted Hamburger House book, but how would you feel about doing it this way? And I had to give it thought, because I'm like, this is a really small market at the moment, so I know how many people are really going to be able to see my book. But they hung the carrot of it's going to be available as an NFT for 1 year exclusively, and then in 1 year's time we will release it traditionally through Amazon, paperback, and all that. So then it kind of became a no-brainer for me there. Like, as long as it gets out the light of day that way too, then I'm fine with it, and I'll be definitely into being a part of this experiment, shall we say, and hoping that it is a future. There's the buy-in for it's tough, and I think there's a lot of work that has to still go into it to get the public at large into it. But like I said, I do believe in it, and I'm willing to take a stab at it. So the Haunted Hamburger House is out there for anybody who's into NFTs, and if not, well, just wait until next October, I believe it is, and it'll be available through normal channels.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, who knew, gosh, what is it, 10 years ago now, 10, 11 years ago, when people were first putting up their books on Kindle, that was going to take off like it did around that time, where all of a sudden it's like if you wrote anything and put it on there, it was suddenly gold. And I mean, this could be the next gold rush. You never know.
Yeah. And think of the really earliest days of ebooks where you had to almost have like a mini laptop, and you had to have like actual floppy disk to save your books on, or even
Yeah.
you're purchasing floppy disk, which was the book. That's like a big buy-in for people. I never would have got in on it at that point.
Yeah.
um but then came the day when technology was adapted, made more sense, and now, all of a sudden you don't need any sort of hardware. All you need is this device. And it was even before the smartphone. You had the e-readers, but as long as you had some wireless, you could get your books like downloaded instantly. I know one of the first things I did when I got my Nook was to, while I was driving and stopped at a red light, and I bought a book. And before that light turned green, it was on my e-reader. I could have started reading it right there. To me, that was like incredible. That's the wave. This is the wave of the future now. I can't I just bought a book at a red light, and I couldn't do that before. That was, to me, like a quantum leap. So yeah, I know at the moment it's not the easiest thing to do or the most attractive way to buy a book. It's really for, at the moment, even marketing it, I can't market it anything to like people who read. I got to market it to people who are into crypto, and a lot of them aren't into reading. So it's an odd thing at the moment. But again, I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in the future of it.
Oh man, that's pretty cool. To be perfectly honest, that's pretty cool. You're looking at all avenues and different venues, and you gotta experiment to see what you can find, and you never know what's going to hit. So all the best to you, man. I hope it works out. It sounds
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Yep, I'm looking forward to the future of it, definitely.
Well, so with all the like crazy stuff that you write, I mean, have you ever thought about writing under a pseudonym, or do you just kind of look forward to like, nah, everything's under Frank Edler?
The idea occurs to me, but I don't know. I don't think I can write any crazier than I already do. And I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily embarrassed or worried about, like, I'm not like this over the top erotica, S&M sex like books. There's nothing like that. They're just sort of like really absurd, quirky books, I should say.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to put my stuff. Even calling my books horror sometimes is, I don't want to say a stretch, but it's like not the core of what it is. They're more comedy than they are dark horror or anything like that. So I'm never afraid of putting my name on the book for fear of, whatever in my personal life coming out. That's never bothered me. It's never been an issue.
Mhm.
So yeah, unless I was really to do something vastly different, I wouldn't even give it a second thought.
Well, that's good though. I mean, I can appreciate that. I mean, I had told my wife a while back. I thought, I was getting kind of desperate there for a little bit, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I should dip my toes into romance, and I'll use a pseudonym and see what I can do. And she's like, "Could you write romance?" I was like, "I don't know, probably not, honestly." And she was like, "Well, then why are you worried about it?" I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know you're right. Yeah.
that would be one of those things. I mean, the money they make, it would be very
Yeah.
attractive. And the one name I had sort of given a slight bit of consideration to publishing under was my podcasting pseudonym, which is simply Mr. Frank. But
Mm.
with my podcast, going to conventions and stuff, like people were just addressing me as Mr. Frank, and like on the regular, and to the point where it's like, am I missing the boat by not branding my books with the Mr. Frank as opposed to just Frank Edler? Um, in the end, I'm glad I didn't, because the podcast is done now. But I still get people calling me Mr. Frank all the time. But I think even just like that would be a little too quirky to like
Mm.
keep going with, even though like it's how a lot of people know. Like if you were to hang out at a convention with me, you'd probably find that like 75% of the people who walk up to me are like, "Hey, Mr. Frank, what's up?" But I think fortunately they all know, back of house, I'm still Frank Edler at the end of the day. So we'll stick with it.
I think that's how I first heard about you was, of course, through Armand and talking about Mr. Frank, and then then through those channels, I found out about the Bazong podcast, which I mean, and as you brought it up, I mean, yeah, and that show is no more. Has it been a year now already?
Almost, yeah. I shut it down in January of
Okay.
2022. Yeah, so it's been close to a year. Um, I stopped doing it just because I was at the core of what I was doing. I was trying to promote this bizarro fiction, just weird fiction in general. Um, and it sort of got to the point where I just didn't feel like the market for the genre was there. I felt like a lot of people had abandoned it for various reasons, and this was also at the time where this Godless platform was launching, and I found myself interviewing more of these extreme horror people and like making excuses for like, yeah, oh yeah, it's weird because it's over the top, when
Mhm.
it really wasn't truly what I had set out to do with the podcast. And I felt like the core um tenet of what I was trying to do was kind of not there market wise or community wise anymore. And I just felt like, you know what, this is 6 years now. That's a long damn time for a podcast, as you know, because you've been doing Sample Chapter for quite a while. Have you hit 6 years? You got to be pretty close to that.
This is I mean, I'm in my fifth year of doing it,
Yeah,
and yeah, coming up on starting six
it's
next year. Gosh,
that's a long road, you know.
yeah.
So it just everything sort of lined up and was telling me like, let's end it here. Let's end it here while it's still good. And I kind of went out, like, this is the end of the road for Bazong, but I will probably return at some point to do some kind of show, a podcast, a YouTube thing, something.
Hmm.
But I can tell you, since January, I've definitely been enjoying my retirement from podcasting. Um, for, as you know, we talked off the air about scheduling and trying to get your schedule in line with other people's schedule. It's not the easiest thing, and that was always one of the biggest hurdles. I thought doing a one-man show interviews were like super simple, but yeah, just kind of getting everybody on board and getting times and everybody's busy lives to sit down for an hour and do something is it's a challenge. So yeah, there was a lot of reasons, and I just felt like, let's, while I still enjoy podcasting and stuff, let's just end this one now. And I've been able to, I'm happy, like, because I've been able to focus on my writing that much more. And I think that shows a lot in the almost year I've been away from podcasting.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Then yeah, you ended it on your terms, and then you were able to move forward with what's making you happy, and that's good. So, and I mean, and I can say with all honesty, I was a fan of the show. I loved hearing your interviews and checking out some of these crazy books that with people that you would interview, and it was unique. There was nothing else like it that I found on in the podcast land. And but yeah, it was sad to see it go. I think you kind of surprised us, didn't you? You kind of like, well, this is the last one. And
Well, yeah, and I don't know, maybe I gave it a month or so sort of notice, like, this
oh,
is
okay.
I'm gonna, yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't like, this is the last show done. I did go out with a bang. I did I've been watching at the time there was a show they would stream on YouTube, and they were using this service called StreamYard, and it was a really cool, like, live broadcasting thing that would live broadcast into YouTube, onto Facebook Live if you wanted to, and you could bring people in and out, a lot like Zoom,
Hmm.
uh, but a little more made to do these live streams for YouTube platforms and Facebook specifically. So I
Yeah.
really like that concept, and I'm like, this is how I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set it up on a Saturday in January. It was very close to, I think it was just a few days after, like, the birthday of Bazong, the 6 year anniversary.
Hmm.
But I needed a Saturday. I needed to clear the schedule, and I'm like, I'm going on live at whatever. I don't know if it was noon, but it was sometime in the afternoon. And I'm like, we're just going, man. I got, I think they give you like 8 hours you can podcast. I don't know if I went that long, but I went a while. I went a little too long, because by the end, and the recordings there, I was plastered because I've been drinking all afternoon. And I had so I went out with a bang, and I was just like, I'm gonna do this thing, and anybody can, here's the link, and you can come in and we can all chat. I wanted anybody who'd been on the show, enjoyed the show. If you hadn't gotten on the show, this is your last opportunity. Just anybody and everybody pop in, and let's just all celebrate this thing that we've all been doing, because I never felt like it was me. I always felt like it was the Zongers, as I call them, were, you know, just a big group of people that love this kind of stuff. And I just wanted to have a party, and that's what they did. And we had this great live stream full of glitches. You know, it was like too much for my little laptop to take at times when I had too many people on. Thank God, and God rest his soul, Jay Wilburn was in, and he was like, when my computer would go down, he like held down the fort on the live stream and was kind of interviewing until I got back on and everything. And it was really a good time, even though I got sloppy drunk at the end. It was I went out with a bang, that's for sure. I could say that much.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And yeah, I mean, you know, I haven't even been able to talk about Jay since it happened, other than making a few posts online. But you know, for anybody that's been following the show, you know about previous guest of the show, Jay Wilburn, and a longtime friend with Frank Edler and everybody within that Mondo world. And he passed away a month ago, and very sad. And you guys were, yeah, I mean, they had the last Bazong, and then weren't you on his show as well, getting to talk about it soon after?
He had done after Bazong ended. He would write for Lit Reactor, do articles.
Yeah.
And a few months after Bazong ended, I don't remember how long, but at some point he was like, I pitched this article for Lit Reactor about the legacy that Bazong left behind. I'm like, really, you did that? And he was like, well, you know, I needed ideas. I threw anything out. He's always, you know, good to rib on you and stuff. But they greenlit the article for him, so he wanted to do instead of like his usual just sort of email interview or whatever, he just wanted to like do a Zoom meeting and recording, because he was also doing his Twitch channel and stuff and putting up YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we got together on Zoom one evening and just sort of talked it out about, you know, and all the questions he had about Bazong, and you know, how I kind of like all put it all into perspective, you know, that I had a couple months or weeks or whatever it was at that point to kind of look back and kind of give my take on it all. And I thought that was really interesting, because that's one of the, you know, when Jay passed and people were giving their tributes, the thing you always heard was like, he's the biggest supporter of, it didn't matter who you were, is if you were a writer, like you were his brother, you were his sister, you were family. He would just do everything he could to promote whoever and how many ever people it was possible for him to do. So like with Jay, he was never the biggest fan of Bizarro, you know, didn't write much of it at all. I think I forced him to do it once. But he wanted to write this article. He was really well informed about the show. Obviously he had you know, watched several episodes. I mean, he knew all about it. So, you know, and again, just kind of, he thought about Bazong in a way I hadn't. Like, I was blown away that he would do this perspective. Like, I hadn't even, it's this silly show, but to, you know, the truth of the matter was, looking back on it, is I did this show that really nobody else had done for that genre, that Bizarro, that weird fiction thing. So you know, it was kind of like, geez, Jay, I guess you are right. It's a little more important than I kind of like, you know, just cavalier about it. And then he said even too, like, he picked up on the thing. I was always hesitant on Bazong to be very self-promotional. Like, I always felt like Jay, like, this is the person I'm interviewing. It's their time to promote their self. This show is not about me. It's about, you know, promoting people who don't have that voice, that platform. You know, not everybody's Stephen King, and this is the opportunity for this little guy to get on a bigger platform and shout about their books. So I was really, from time to time, I would run a promo or just like, hey, I had a new book out, check that out too. But, you know, I just really downplayed any of my stuff. And he was in that introspective. He was like, you should have promoted your stuff more. And I'm like, why? Like, it wasn't for that. He thought that was like to my detriment. I was surprised by that, but it was also like, wow, I had Jay's blessing on that. I wish he would have said that sooner, because I really would have went it down on promoting my books had that been the case. But yeah, that type of thing was Jay Wilburn all over. I mean, he was just champion for everybody.
Yeah, he was somebody special, that's for sure. I loved getting to have him on the show, and once again, I mean, Armand, met him through the Armand, and like the first time Armand had come on the show, they were discussing, or he was discussing his book with Jay that they had written together, and Yard Full of Bones. And then, so down the road, I got to have Jay on the show and talk about one of his books. And then a year ago, when I was promoting one of my new ones, he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, why don't you come on the show?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, really? Like that's cool." So that was really neat to get to go on his show and talk on matters of faith. And that was my first time on a show like his, where it was both live and being streamed. So like he's taking questions and people are asking like, "Hey, what kind of cigar are you smoking?" And different stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, and that was, yeah. He was just so likable and friendly. And even though I didn't get to know him the way you did, I mean, you got to go to events with him, right? And book signings.
Yeah, I mean, I had anytime we were at Scares of Care, he was there. At the conclusion of the day, typically we'd always, like you said, the Armand group would always go out to dinner somewhere, and that happened just this past summer, where Jay was up there and his wife had gotten sick with COVID, so Armand wasn't even essentially intending to go to the Scares of Care this past summer, but Jay needed a ride because he couldn't, at that point with his health, he couldn't drive himself, especially not that far from Georgia. I'm sorry, from South Carolina. And so Armand agreed to come pick him up and just spend the weekend, be his surrogate wife for the weekend. And Armand just sat at his table. He wasn't doing his thing, but Jay had a phenomenal weekend selling books and everything. And we went out to dinner, and going out to dinner, having that personal time with Jay every time for years were some of the most memorable meals I've had with friends and family. Just to doubled over laughter, the whole restaurant looking at you, because Jay is so straight in his humor. You bastard. He was like, just, he was very unique in his humor, and wry, and he could just get the whole table rolling, and you could see he just have that little smirk. He would never break, or I'm the kind of guy that just laughs at my own jokes and cracks up with everybody else. Jay would just, like, the best he'd give you is a smirk, like knowing I got them all going. And he wouldn't let up. And that was including this past summer when we were out to dinner, just rolling, and just Jay being Jay, the sort of Jay you didn't see, like that public persona. And man, you got it. And all I can say is, like, Armand wasn't supposed to be there, and myself and JC Walsh were there, and it just, in hindsight, I was like thank God Armand came, and we had that, like, little did we know, the final time. But yeah, I'm definitely going to cherish that last one.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's anybody that even just knew him for just online, I think he's definitely it's made things a little bit darker without him. So it's glad to have had him, and sorry that for your loss, man.
Yeah. I mean, he was a loss to a lot of people. I think I'll tell you what, when word of his passing spread on Facebook, social media, I don't think I've seen any writer have that much outpouring from such a wide swath of the community of people.
Yeah, his name was trending for a while.
His name was trending. I saw people going, I don't know who this Jay Wilburn was. I wasn't aware of him, but damn, he must have been somebody special. And, like, to see that much of a reaction was like, oh, I know Jay saw it. So
yeah. Oh man, that's so awesome. Well, look, let's turn things around in a different direction here, and we'll talk about this latest book, this little ode to Chuck E. Cheese. I'm not sure what this is. Tell us about this new book.
This new book. This is, I mentioned I wrote 2 books with the intention of selling to indie publishers to work with them. This is the second one, to Hamburger House. I think did I write it first? I don't remember what order it went in. I think I wrote this one first. Also, D&T Publishing picked it up. But they're going to do this one traditionally, and it's out right now. If it's the 18th of November, then it's out on Amazon paperback everywhere in the world. If it's not the 18th, well, it's available on the godless.com platform at the moment, and will be after the 18th as well. So yeah, I sat down to write again a book with a little bit more broader appeal that might appeal to a publisher who's willing to take something just a little bit different, but not normally my wacky zany stuff. I failed a little bit more in that department on this. Like Haunted Hamburger House is like the most normal thing I've ever written. Reggie Rat starts out normal and then goes off the rails into my usual Frank Edler territory. But to D&T credit, they picked it up. They do enjoy a crazy book. And so what I did with this book is, as you might know, as a horror author, a dark fiction author, you inevitably get the question like, well, what scares you, right? That's a standard sort of question for any kind of horror author. And I never really had a good answer for them. Like, I'm a grown man. Like, nothing scares me. I'm not scared of the monster in the closet, under the bed, falling from heights. I just won't climb a ladder, anything like that. But that question would like ruminate on me for some reason. And it occurred to me one day that there are two things that I am scared of, frightened of, absolutely, legitimately frightened of them. The first thing is kidney stones. I've seen some people, I've never experienced them myself, but I've seen people go through trying to pass one of those things. To me, I've seen a woman give birth to a child several times. I think I would rather give birth to a child than try to pass a kidney stone. It looks like the worst, most uncomfortable, unpleasant, painful. I've never seen pain on a person's face until I've seen somebody. It's like unmistakable. Like now I've seen it enough where I'm like, you have kidney stones, don't you? Because they're just, and then they want to like just hit you in the head, but they can't because they're just in so much pain they can't do anything. It looks terrifying, and I never want to have one, to the tune of I had to, like, I did all the research. I'm like, how do I not get these things? And they're, don't drink soda. I'm like, no problem, no more soda. And I've like tried to adjust my diet so that I make myself as least susceptible to them as possible. I do not want to deal. I am frightened shitless of getting kidney stones. I hope I never do. So far, so good. And the other thing that frightens the hell out of me are birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. I have 3 children. They're all past, thank God, Chuck E. Cheese birthday party age. But I had to go through 3 children worth of Chuck E. Cheese birthday parties. Now, they may hate me later on in life because you would never let us have a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. So you're damn right, because I love you and I cherish you as my children and I want you to be safe. So you were never going to have a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, but they have friends who have parents that probably, just don't care about their children. So they do have birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. The place disgusts me. There's never been a clean one I've been inside of. Just the fact that you walk in the door in the foyer area before you actually get into Chuck E. Cheese proper, there's always a sign that says no firearms with a little pistol with the circle and a cross through it. I'm like, why is that here? These are not in McDonald's. These are not in Disney World. Why is every Chuck E. Cheese having no firearms sign? What happened? So that's the first frightening thing. And then just they have this whole like protocol, like stamping your kid's hand with like, security, like invisible ink, and they're supposed to match it up to you. But I've seen enough of that where like, these are teenagers running this place and they don't care who you run out with, and everything is lax. Then you get right down to the old nitty gritty of Mr. Chuck E. Cheese himself. And of course, he's a rat. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why would you have a rat? This is a pizza place, essentially a pizza place arcade. Your mascot is a rat, like the most foulest animal that, typically you hire exterminator to take care of. And this guy's it's front and center of the house.
It's a fair question.
Yeah. And then on top of, there's a bazillion disgusting, sweaty, nasty children running around this place day after day, hours on end, in ball pit slides with poopy diapers and booger hands and everything. And it's just all over the balls and the ball pit and the slides and just any little rocking vehicle and joystick on the video game. Like, it's just a nasty, disgusting place. And I think one of the last ones I was at, I had been so done. It was my youngest kid, probably the last or next to last birthday party that I ultimately attended at Chuck E. Cheese. And they're just so disgusted by going there, having to deal with this stuff. And I turned to my wife and I said, you know what? If hell was on earth, Chuck E. Cheese would be one floor below the basement. I'm like, this place is disgusting. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'm fearful. I cringe when I think of like those ball pits and just all the grubby little hands and everything. So that is the second thing I'm afraid of: Chuck E. Cheese birthday parties, and of course kidney stones. So I said to myself, if those are the things as me as a horror writer I'm afraid of legitimately, well then I should write a book about Chuck E. Cheese and kidney stones. And that came out to be Reggie Rat's Birthday Fun Center and Same Day Outpatient Care Facility. Yeah. That's the way my mind works.
Oh my gosh. What a crazy name. And that's so cool. And of course, since we're hearing from this book today, I get to put that on the title of this episode. So that's going to be a lot of fun to make sure I have that. Thank goodness for copy and paste. So I only have to write it one time, hopefully. So.
Well, as much as I, wanted to, for my own purposes, work with a publisher on this one, I also said I'm challenging whoever picks this up to fit that whole title on the cover of a book. And D&T Publishing, God bless them, they made it happen.
They did it good, yeah, and it fits right in there perfectly. So,
just barely. You might have to squint.
Oh my gosh! So the story, is it pretty much self-evident with the title? Is that what we can expect?
It's fairly, yeah. It's definitely a father and a son go to a birthday party at Reggie Rat's. Don't want to infringe on any copyrights. They go to Reggie Rat's birthday. Dad is suffering from kidney stones while trying to have, let his son have a time of his life. And that's where it is. And, kidney stones, there's a same day outpatient care facility somewhere.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And that comes out the 18th, you said?
That is available the 18th in ebook and paperback and all that fun stuff on Amazon. And of course, godless.com. Keep plugging them too.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, we'll definitely have the link up for that so everybody can grab that right away. What are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working on, I'm making a half-hearted, maybe even quarter-hearted attempt at NaNoWriMo. I never done it before, and I don't even going into it this year. I didn't really believe I could accomplish 50,000 words, but really what I needed was like a sort of bump on my word count for the year. So I'm going into NaNoWriMo, working on this thing that I've been kind of working on it here and there all year long and spinning my wheels on it. So I figured I'd use Nano as a sort of fresh start at it again. And it's called Cupid is Dead. And it's about a guy who basically gets Cupid's cursed heart because Cupid can't stand being Cupid anymore. It's like I'm trying to write like a Valentine's Day story.
Oh my gosh. Kind of ties right in there with some of your you got a little bit of a theme where you have some of your other books, like the death books and such.
Yeah. I have this like sort of occupational horror thing.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys who still have full-time jobs. I think I can relate to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I hope for. We can all feel a little bit of that in the books, frustrations of work.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, where can people find and follow you, Frank?
I do have now frankedler.com open and ready. You can purchase signed books from me directly from there. That's like a thing people are into lately. So you can go right there, do that. My blog is available there, and different things. Of course, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and lately I've been enjoying the wormhole that is TikTok. So I'm on TikTok as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll definitely, like I said, we'll have the links to all that and the links for the new book and the show notes, everyone, so you know where to go. Frank, man, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a blast catching up with you, and gosh, I just wish you all the best.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on again. I always love coming on this show and just talking with you as much as I love you giving me the opportunity to read a sample chapter of my book.
The pleasure is all mine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for me to grab a drink and a cigar and sit back to hear a little sample from our guest, Frank Edler, with Reggie Rat's Birthday Fun Center and Same-Day Outpatient Care Facility. Oh.
You nailed it, my friend. You nailed it. So yeah, this is where I've started out with my previous books on this show with chapter 1. I've decided to step a little further into the action this time around with Reggie Rat's Birthday Fun Center and Same-Day Outpatient Care Facility. So this chapter takes place right when the father and his son basically get to Reggie Rat's and the party's about to begin. So here it is. This is chapter 8 from Reggie Rat's Birthday Fun Center and Same-Day Outpatient Care Facility. Party hardy, Mr. Smarty. Ichabod found the area of tables reserved for Christopher's party. Christopher was there a few moments ahead of Ichabod and his dad. Ichabod ran up to Christopher and handed him his present with excited eyes. Christopher and his parents pepped up when their first guest arrived. Christopher's mother took the present and placed it in a giant garbage bag on the floor. She nodded politely to Mortimer and thanked him for coming. She invited Ichabod to take a seat next to Christopher. That made Ichabod's day. Any concerns he had about the birthday party were forgotten. He was all smiles now. Christopher's father, whom Mortimer had not yet met, approached Mortimer and offered him a handshake and a welcoming pat on the shoulder. Hey, thanks for coming. I'm Christopher's dad, Gabe. Hey, Gabe, Mortimer said, grabbing hold of Gabe's hand. I'm Mortimer, Ichabod's dad. Morty, all right. Mortimer didn't like it when people assumed it was okay to call him Morty, like they've been pals forever. He introduced himself as Mortimer. What's so hard about saying Mortimer? Mortimer ground his teeth into an uncomfortable smile. Gaby, he said. Gabe chuckled, unimpressed with the nickname he was given in return. Right. Well, hang out. Everybody else will be here soon. Another guest arrived to save them both from the uncomfortable small talk that was about to ensue now that they knew that they didn't like one another. Gabe excused himself to greet the newcomers. Mortimer stood behind his son's chair. I get to sit next to Christopher, Ichabod said, as if he won an award. That's awesome, Ick, Mortimer said, continuing with the theme of nicknames. It didn't take long for all the guests to arrive. Soon the tables for Christopher's party were filled with kids ready for the party of the century. Mortimer felt the urge to pee rise above the undercurrent of constant uncomfortable pain he had been experiencing all day. He told Ichabod he was going to run to the bathroom and stick with Christopher until he got back. Mortimer found a hallway with the word restrooms painted on the corridor. He wound through the throngs of children and parents to get to the bathroom. The hall was long with a bunch of doors on both sides. One said backstage, employees only. Another said kitchen staff only. There were a few more that weren't marked, but were probably storage closets or small offices, the hall. Mortimer felt weird entering a room marked boys. It made him feel like a kid toucher or something, but it wasn't as if there were any doors marked men. As he pushed the door open, a quick, sharp pain stabbed his side. He wanted to cry. Maybe he was a boy. Mort hobbled over to the urinal. The pain went from a stab to a throb. He hoped it only meant he had to pee. There was urgency in his bladder, but the piss wouldn't come. He tried to push, but that intensified the discomfort in his side. Mortimer prayed a prayer to the God he infrequently spoke to and asked for sweet relief. God seemed to be busy with other worshipers who were thoughtful enough to speak with him on a more regular basis. His prayers were lost in a long queue. He felt the tip of his dick burn as if the piss were right there, too afraid to jump. He tried relaxing everything, a drip out, and tapped the plastic basket in the urinal that once contained the pleasant smelling deodorizer, which had dissolved long ago. A drop. It was a start. Mortimer tried to relax even more. He couldn't feel the sensation of pee all the way up inside himself, but still, he could not empty his bladder. He wanted to zip up and admit defeat, but he felt like he'd put a lot of effort into this, and he didn't want it to go to waste. Mort stood there for far too long. If he waited for the piss to come much longer, everyone would think he was slinked away to drop a deuce. He didn't want his son's friends, parents, thinking he was the kind of dad that would poop in a seedy joint like Reggie Ratz. That would be uncivilized. The only people who defecated in a bathroom like this were derelicts and hobos. Why didn't Reggie Rat have a no hobo sign in the foyer? Mortimer could only assume management encouraged bums to come in, take dumps in their restrooms if that was the case. The piss started to flow, slow, but with mercy. It didn't bring relief. To Mort, it felt as if someone half opened the valve, and there was a strong, pungent smell to the piss as well. Maybe this was some kind of urinary tract infection. It would make sense. He'd had them before. Some hot pee, difficult going, and lasted a day or so. Never with this much pain accompanying it, but maybe that was part of getting old. At least he had the self-diagnosis now. He could get some antibiotics from the doctor and be right as rain. Mort zipped up and flushed. He scrunched his nose at the foul smell from his pee. It was kind of awful, like something was dead in his groin. He washed up and returned to the party before anyone could accuse him of evacuating his bowels. Mortimer noted at least 5 other birthday parties were taking place. It made the place feel like a birthday party sweatshop. This place ground him out like a factory. He couldn't imagine a parent not loving their child to such a degree that they would give them a birthday party as soulless as Reggie Rat's party. Music began to play over the PA system. It was fun music, too fun, in fact. It was Muzak on Prozac. A Reggie Rat's employee took the stage in front of the simultaneous birthday parties. She was dressed in clothes that looked just like Reggie Rat's, except they were human-sized. She looked ridiculous. She also looked like she knew she looked ridiculous. "Hey, gang, I'm Jessica, your party hostess with the mostest. Do you know what time it is?" she asked. Mortimer could tell she was supposed to deliver that opening with great deal of enthusiasm and mystery to pique everybody's interest. The girl delivered the line like she was in a bad third-grade presentation of Xanadu. "I can't hear you," Jessica said. She heard everyone, but she had to say this disingenuous line anyway. Corporate policy. "It's time for the birthday party." Jessica waited for the applause and cheer that never came. "And who are we here celebrating today?" About 100 kids all yelled out 6 different names at the same time. Well, that must have made each of the birthday kids feel super special. Jessica, the party hostess, jumped off the stage and approached Christopher. "Hey there, Mr. Birthday Boy." She knew he was the birthday boy because he was marked with an oversized inflatable yellow, blue, and red birthday crown, the same as the trademark colors of Reggie Rat's signature beanie. "Hi," Christopher said, embarrassed by the intention. "It's not a birthday party until a certain someone comes to the celebration. Do you know who that certain someone is, birthday boy?" Reggie Rat?" Christopher asked, unsure if it was the correct answer. "That's right. Let's get Reggie Rat out here to celebrate. Time to party hardy, Mr. Smarty," Jessica exclaimed, more to the room than Christopher himself. Jessica bopped Christopher on his crown, pushing it down over his face. Everyone had a great laugh over the birthday prank. Everyone except Christopher.
Oh, man. All right, that was Frank Edler reading a sample from his latest book. Coming up November 18th, it is Reggie Rat's Birthday Fun Center and Same-Day Outpatient Care Facility. Hit that link in the show notes to find Frank and to find the book so you can get it ordered right away. And make sure you check out all of Frank's other links in there to follow him. Lastly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out next time when I'm back with a brand new author, an all-new book, and a new sample chapter. Take care, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Talk to you soon.